Do you remember a time not that long ago when a girl posted a video finding out that her boyfriend thinks about the Roman Empire a lot, which led to other girlfriends asking their boyfriends about it and finding out they think about it once every few days or once a week? I remember because it started a trend where people started identifying what their Roman empires were, and the term kind of became like something weird and obscure that is just constantly on your mind. I felt comforted because I had my own Roman Empire, and it was nice to know that other people had a similar experience. What was my Roman Empire, you ask? Well, it's none other than URBZ Sims in the City. Not just any version, mind you. It is specifically the Game Boy Advance version. Yeah, I know it's a really obscure thing to constantly think about, but there was a reason it became so influential to me. When I was a young crab, I had a very strange relationship with video games. I was a child of divorce and lived with my dad, who thought most video games and cartoons were too childish. We had a PlayStation 1, but that got stolen when my dad was stationed out of the country. Then we had a PlayStation 2. But the games I played were either Dance Dance Revolution, Sly Cooper, and then we had whatever games my older sister was allowed to play, but I wasn't for some reason. She was able to have her own Game Boy Advance, and I thought that was unfair since I couldn't have my own. But then one year for Christmas, the first present I opened were 2 Game Boy Advance games. First was Series of Unfortunate Events, based on the movie with Jim Carrey, and the other was URBZ Sims in the City. While I was excited to get them, I was pretty confused because I didn't know how I was supposed to play these since I wasn't allowed to touch my sister's Game Boy. That wasn't until my dad and my stepmom realized they gave me the wrong present first, and the first one I was supposed to open was a brand new Game Boy Advance SP of my very own. Because I didn't have a lot of games for my new system, I played the hell out of those 2 games. But the one that stuck with me the most was URBZ. So much so that when I visited my cousin and played their copy of URBZ on the GameCube, I actually hated it because it wasn't right to me. Great time to mention that I'm autistic, I guess. And then, when I got my DS, I happily picked up the port of the Game Boy Advance version that added a bunch of new content. Many years later, my girlfriend recommended that I play it on my stream, so I did. And the confused reactions of the story delighted me so much that I wanted to create a video about the game I spent so much of my childhood playing. Before we get into it, a few notes. All the footage from the Game Boy Advance version are thanks to the Visual Boy Advance emulator. Even though I owned the games, it was just a lot easier to use for recording footage. All the clips with my model on it are from my past streams where I played a vanilla, unmodded version of the game. All the other footage were taken from separate playthroughs where I turned on infinite money and max needs cheats in order to get just the gameplay story elements without having to worry about any of that stuff. I also included some footage of the home console version, which are thanks to Gavsky Gaming here on YouTube, who gave me permission to use some of his video. I'll leave a link in the description so you can check it out. Finally, feel free to put this video on in the background while you do your own thing. I'm not going to judge because I'm guilty of doing the same thing. So sit back and relax and listen to me yap about this weird-ass game. In November of 2004, EA, with Kryptonite Games, released the second Sims game to not be released on computers first, URBZ Sims in the City. It was released on Game Boy Advance, GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox, and there were a few mobile phones that had the game, but it was the same as the Game Boy Advance version. The game featured the same Sims management as you'd expect from a Sims game, but with a more, urban twist, for lack of a better term. URBZ was supposed to be the first game released on consoles, but that game ended up being Sims Busting Out, with URBZ being a sequel to that. For the home console versions, which are GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox, the game was much more similar to the mainline games on the computer, from what I could tell. But you had the opportunity to meet the Sim versions of the Black Eyed Peas, who, by the way, made most of the soundtrack and had 2 of their songs translated, in quotation marks, to Simlish. The Game Boy Advance version, however, which was later ported to Nintendo DS, was a much different game. Instead of a more sandbox experience we've come to expect from Sims games, the Game Boy Advance version was much more story-focused like your standard RPG. While you had some agency, your choices didn't really matter for the main story. The DS port was mostly the same game, but had a few updates and changes. I'm not going to go into every change, but some of the minor ones were some adjustments required for popularity goals, changes to menu controls to accommodate the DS's touchscreen, new functionality with pets, stuff like that. But for major changes, there was a new quest line after the base game that added new characters and a new area to explore. And one of the minigames, Hey Yar Bombard, was replaced with a new minigame called Sushi Sensei. The quest that was associated with Hey Yar Bombard was changed. While the story of the quest changes, the goals remain the same. They also added some sort of gene splicing minigame that allowed you to make unicorns. It was wild. But how well was this game received? Critics didn't hate the game. In fact, it got pretty average reviews across all systems. The developers actually thought the game was going to do really well. An unnamed employee gave a tip to a publisher of the site, Unseen64, who then posted said tip on a forum, but was later removed with the OP stating, and I quote, "I've been asked to remove this from my beta wiki and YouTube, as well as being removed from here by someone legally representing EA. They didn't get into detail, sorry." End quote. Thanks to the Wayback Machine, you can see what was said, but I'm not going to go too into it because I don't want EA to sue me. So I'm just going to use the info that's still on the game's Wikipedia page. Given this is unverified info, just take this with a grain of salt. According to this unnamed employee, the game was supposed to have a PC port and a sequel if it sold well. But given that URBZ 2 doesn't exist, the game did not do as expected. Those projects are scrapped, however, the work that was put into URBZ 2 was shifted to a console version of The Sims 2. It seems like beating The Sims version of the Black Eyed Peas wasn't enough to turn a profit. I don't know if it was just bad marketing or if the people of 2004 just didn't like the game, but today it has somewhat of a cult following. When I played the game on stream, I had multiple people make comments across all my social media platforms to tell me that they fondly remembered the game. With the history of the game out of the way, let's now talk about the world of the game itself. I've already discussed the differences between the DS version and the Game Boy Advance version, but since I had played the Game Boy Advance version the most, that's the one I'm going to focus on for this video. In the base game, there are 5 locations: Urbania, Sim Quarter, Glasstown, the Bayou, and Paradise Isles. There was also a special multiplayer area called Moonbase Alpha, but to access it, you needed to have a Game Boy Advance link and someone else with the game, and since I had neither of those, I have never actually been there. And since Moonbase Alpha has really no bearing on the story whatsoever, we're just going to pretend it doesn't exist. And just like real life, there are cliques, which this game calls rep groups. And these groups are the Richies, which include Misty Waters, Lily Gates, Lottie Cash, and Luther Big Bucks, who is the leader. The Artsies, which includes Cannonball Coleman, Teresa Bullhorn, Pritchard Loxley, and Roxana Moxie as the leader. The Shreedies, which includes Chris Thistle, Crystal, Ewan Watami, and Darius as the leader. Though, side note, Ewan doesn't start the game as a Shreedy, it's actually part of an optional rep group mission where you can recruit him. And finally, we have the Nerdies, with Lincoln Broadstreet, Maximilian Moore, Sue Pronova, and the leader being Polynomial. If you haven't noticed, this game really likes their pun names. There are also a bunch of characters that are unaffiliated with any rep group. They are, in alphabetical order, Bayou Boo, Berkeley Claude, Crawdad Clem, Daddy Big Bucks, Detective D-Man, Dusty Hog, Ephraim Earl, Giuseppe Mezza Alto, Grandma Hattie, Harlan King, Mambo Loa, Old Salty, and Phoebe Twiddle. All of the characters I've mentioned are ones that can be befriended. There are some others that just kind of exist, but we'll get to the ones that matter when we get there. Finally, the game is broken up into sections I'm calling chapters. Each chapter includes 5 missions, and once those are all completed, you unlock the last mission to progress to the next chapter. There are some chapters where all 5 can be worked on at the same time, but others where they progress in a linear manner. And a few where part of it is linear and part is simultaneous, it's a bit of a mess. Now that we've set the stage, let's get into the story of URBZ Sims in the City for Game Boy Advance. The game starts with you making your sim. Given that it's a Game Boy Advance game in the early 2000s, your options and the character creator are very limited. After making your toon, you take a little personality quiz. The first question decides what your starting rep group will be. The rest decide your starting zizzles, which are bonuses for various aspects of the game, but more on that later. And then you get the opening cutscene, which is very funny, and I'm just gonna play the whole thing because it's so silly. After watching the absolute cinema that is the opening cutscene, you wake up from a nap on the roof of King Tower. You are then scolded by Chris Thistle, the janitor of the building, to get back to work. This unlocks the first minigame, Squeegee Clean. In this minigame, you are cleaning the bird poop off the windows of King Tower while also dodging said poop. I don't know why it looks like a scene from that one Alfred Hitchcock movie, but honestly, this is not that wild considering the rest of the game. Once you play the minigame for the first time, Chris delivers the news that you're fired. This game is already starting off really strong, huh? Daddy Big Bucks, who is the big bad of the game and I guess a stand-in for capitalism as a whole, bought the tower, which is suspicious to you because you knew Harlan King, the previous owner, loved the tower. But there's not much you could do about it because, capitalism. And now we're homeless for some reason. I don't know where we were living before, and I don't know why me losing my job meant that I lost my house because there's only one place to live in King Tower and it's an unfinished penthouse. So I don't understand, but we're just going with it because this game makes no sense. Anyway, you give Chris back your squeegee and bucket. And you convince her to let you stay in the previously mentioned unfinished penthouse by getting a relationship of 20 with her. She then gives you some tutorial missions that teach you the basics of the game, like needs management, where you eat a snack, take a shower, have a nap, and also about placing items when you eventually get a house, where you have to move a bed up into the unfinished penthouse. And then you have to repair some things, including some water fountains and an old TV. When you finish fixing this shitty black and white TV, you see a hologram of the previous owner, Harlan King, pop out of it to give you exposition. And honestly, I think it really sets the tone for how weird this game gets. Harlan Graham King, sorry, that was really bad, explains that he didn't want to sell his building, but Big Bucks gave him an offer he couldn't refuse, a luxurious all-expenses-paid vacation, which he refused. But then Daddy B adds in a yacht to the deal, and he's like, all right, I'll sell my morals for that. He regrets his decision and asks you to help stop Daddy Big Bucks. Like, okay, sure, but I don't know why this is my problem. Chris comes to ask us how we're holding up, and then tells us that the building is locked and the only way out is to break into Lily Gates' office to take the building key instead of, breaking the building lock, but whatever. You then get a quest to earn your very first skill point by studying mechanical in order to break in. When you get the key in hand, you're caught by Lily and Daddy Big Bucks and get arrested and sent to jail. Yeah, this game starts with you going to jail, and now you're a criminal. But after talking to the detective for like 20 minutes and answering his questions, you get put on parole. But you are still homeless, so he lets you use the cell as a place to stay until you can rent a place. But again, you don't have a job because you were just fired, so the detective tells you you can make money by playing basketball, unlocking another minigame called Hoops, because, of course, a game from the early 2000s in an urban, in quotation mark setting, has basketball. That being said, Hoops is probably one of my favorite minigames because it's probably the easiest, because all you have to do is line up the two rings and like that's it. I mean, it does get harder as you level up because the rings get faster, but it's pretty easy. Once you play the minigame at least once and get enough money to rent either the shitty apartment or the shittier apartment, the world of Minneapolis is your oyster. Okay, honestly, the pink upstairs in the slightly better apartment is kind of cute. And it's not the world of Minneapolis, it's just Urbania, because the other two sections are blocked off and you're still on parole. And now you have to deal with rent and your shit being stolen. No, seriously, there's like some sort of thief lurking in the shadows that can literally steal your toilet. I've been robbed and what'd they steal? Oh my god. They took my toilet! They took my toilet! But now that we have more freedom, this brings us to Chapter 2, Urbania. Urbania is the more, back streets part of town, for lack of a better word. There's a news office, a hospital, university, pizza place, thrift shop, garage, the jail you were just in, and a little park with a grill. That was my only source of food for this portion of the game. There's also a secret storage area instead of a bus you can unlock when you befriend Giuseppe. All 5 of the basic missions can be completed at the same time, but I'll go into each one separately. In Work Study, Supernova thinks you're her classmate, which triggers a quest where you kinda commit academic fraud to go to college. To do so, you have to talk to Maximilian. He has you write a thesis paper, where you can study and write it yourself, befriend Lincoln Broadstreet and succeed the first time, or buy one off Berkeley. But Max won't accept the last one, so you're better off choosing the first 2 options. And then you have to find a special plan where you have to deliver it to him within a certain amount of time. Once you do that, you unlock the college and the Dr. Max Stat minigame that allows you to perform surgery on gardenos because, that's normal. In order to perform said surgery, you have to look at the combination of symbols at the top and try to find the same pattern in your bank below. It's a little nerve-wracking because you have the heart rate monitor going the entire time, and as your timer runs out, the heart rate runs faster and the gnome flatlines, and it's this game, man. And the college has classes you can use to increase your skill points by playing a little minigame. It's really easy. All you have to do is look at a word and say whether it's option A or option B. You still have to pay for the classes though, because state of American colleges, am I right? In Gotta Finish the Riff, Phoebe talks about Cannibal Coleman being depressed and you decide to help him out, I guess. She mentions that he likes saxophone wreaths, which you can buy from the thrift store that she owns. I see you, Phoebe, you're not slick. When you talk to Cannibal, he says you're not hip enough, so you have to increase your creativity by gaining a skill point. And to do that, you can either study some graffiti on the side of a dumpster or take a creativity class at the university if you've unlocked it. Once you gain the skill point, you could talk to him again and help him finish his rhymes. And also give him the saxophone reed if you haven't given him that already. Once all of these objectives are done, you finish the quest, and you unlock the Comedy Explosion minigame, where you are on stage in a silly outfit and you're trying to tell jokes, but people keep throwing tomatoes at you and you have to dodge them. And you can also grab flowers that extend your time, and it makes the game drag on way longer than it should. It's not my favorite minigame. It can be kind of annoying when you're trying to level it up because it's like, I got things to do, man. I don't have time to sit here dodging these tomatoes. In Race for Glory, you talk to Dusty Hogg, who wants help having his motorbike races again. To do this, you need 500 simoleons and help from Ewan. You talk to Ewan, who is very much a product of its time, if you ask me, and he says he will help if you bring him lunch for 3 days. Which was kind of annoying trying to get the footage because I was trying to do one quest at a time, and it's 3 in-game days, and the only way you can really speed up time without using cheats is to just sleep. But after bringing Ewan lunch for 3 days and giving Dusty the money he needs, you talk to him again to complete the quest. This unlocks the Motocross Mayhem minigame and the ability to modify your racing bike. The gameplay of Motocross Mayhem is basically just Excite Bike, if you've ever played that, where it's side-scrolling, you have your motorcycle, you can move up and down. You can kind of like adjust your bike while it's in the air so you don't crash. There's also like spikes and oil slicks and the higher levels, but I don't like this game, so I didn't really play it that much. And the upgrades for the motorcycle is things like making your bike faster, making your handling better, adding nitrous, stuff like that. And you would think that if you don't want to play this minigame, you don't have to worry about it, but you're wrong, and I'll get to that later. In salesmanship, you talk to Berkeley Claude. He convinces you to go to the auction for some giant shrunken heads, which are made out of wood so they're not real, and he can't do it himself because Phoebe won't let him in the store, which is totally valid. I mean, look at him. You attend the auction between 5 and 7 p.m. at the thrift store, and once you secure the wooden heads, you deliver them back to Berkeley, and he gives you a hoverboard, and that's the whole quest. I get this quest is to show you that the thrift store has an auction and you can potentially get things for cheaper, but of all the times I've played this game, I have never once willingly gone to an auction for anything outside of this quest. And also, I think the hoverboard sucks, so this quest was just pointless to me. In Club Zizzle, Lottie Cash tells you about the club that the quest is named after, which is a apparently super secret club that you have to have a password to get in, you have to be cool enough, or whatever. And you are determined to get into this club, so you talk to the daughter of the club's owner, Crystal. To prove you're cool enough, you take her on a date. And if you're a female sim, you can't actually romance the other female characters. However, this is still a date, so I'm still counting this as gay rights. Anyway, you take Crystal on this date, and it's very important to do it at a certain time of day and to have all your needs maxed, because if you try to fulfill them while you're on the date, she will just get mad and leave, and you have to do it at a certain time because you have to go to certain places which are only open at certain times. So you have to min-max your time in your needs management. The date is pretty straightforward. She tells you where to go and what to do. You go to the pizza place, you have to buy her some pizza, and then you have to play games with her, and then she's like, oh, let's go shopping, and then you go to the thrift store, and she's like, oh, this place sucks, and then you have to buy something from the homeless guy on the street. After the successful date, the club door literally materializes out of thin air, and there's a whole cutscene showing you where it is. It's really fucking funny. At said door, you can exchange beads, which you can find in the world or get by befriending people, for zizzles, which are those little upgrades and perks that I mentioned earlier, and one of which has not aged well. You can also enter the club once you find the password. There are multiple ways you can find said password, but the easiest is looking at the bulletin board in the news office. There's also a note that Heidi the smoothie ninja has, but you can't really encounter her yet. And also, yes, there is a ninja that sells smoothies. The club itself really isn't much. It's just a place where you can find certain Sims, because the Sims will have certain time zones where they can be inside of the club, including a ghost, because of course there's a ghost you can talk to in this game. After completing the last 5 missions, you unlock the quest, The Road to Sim Quarter. You talk to Grandma Hattie, who wants to protest Daddy Big Bucks because fuck capitalism and billionaires, and honestly, Grandma Hattie is so real for that. In order for her to trust you, you have to prove you're determined enough. To do so, you have to donate $500 to the cause, make 3 friends, which I learned is impossible to do if you have max relationship cheats on, and get 2 promotions in local jobs, which can be getting level 2 in 2 separate jobs or level 3 in 1 job. Once all of those are completed, you guys have your protest that makes Big Bucks big mad, and he's forced to open up the Sim Quarter for some reason, because I don't understand how politics works in this game. But whatever, take that capitalism, and that brings us to the next chapter of the game, the Sim Quarter. The Sim Quarter is probably my favorite section of this game. It has this New Orleans vibe, and the night music is so good. It's also massive compared to Urbania, with 2 separate areas attached to it. Here, we have a seafood store, fortune teller shop, museum, jazz club, internet cafe, and the market, which sells cooking ingredients and wood carving supplies. There's also like some sort of random vendor who sells the most random shit. I don't understand what his deal is. There's also a lady that sells pets out of a cardboard box, and these pets don't really do anything. You could put them in your house and have them walk around. You could pet them, play with them. They pee on your floor and you have to clean it up. You can also have them follow you around. And I got the orange cat to follow me around when I was playing on stream. And that thing meowed all the time. And it was just like my real cat, who I love very much, but he's also a little shit. Anyway, these 2 separate areas I mentioned are the graveyard and Salty's boat, which is connected by the docks. There are also 2 new housing options here. One is a little house in Salty's boat, and the other one is this really, really nice townhouse. And the townhouse is actually my favorite in the game because it's got 2 stories and a lot of charm. In addition to wood carving supplies, cooking ingredients, whatever the random vendor sells, and the lady that sells pets out of a cardboard box, the internet cafe allows you to use a computer to buy things online. But now, let's get into the quest for this section of the game. In Mission for the Man, the detective asks for help with an investigation. To start, you play a game of Mugu Monkey, which I'll explain in a bit. After you play this game, Giuseppe tells you to go look at the bulletin board in the news office. When you look at the bulletin board, it tells you to go look at the bushes outside of the museum. And when you do so, you find another piece of paper. This piece of paper tells you to go look in the graveyard. And when you do that, you find yet another piece of paper. You give this piece of paper to Berkeley Claude and he will give you a suitcase. You give that suitcase to Detective, who subtly rigs it with a microphone, and then you give that suitcase to Giuseppe. This whole quest is a wild goose chase and it's kind of silly. As I mentioned earlier, you unlock Mugu Monkey at the beginning of this quest. And it's probably one of my favorite minigames. It's a card/betting game, and you bet on which monkey you think will survive until the very end. And you get these cards in order to either strengthen the monkeys that you bet on, or to try and eliminate the other monkeys. While you are playing against 2 computer opponents, it actually takes a little bit of skill and luck in order to win. And personally, I just find that really fun, that it's a little bit more challenging than some of the other minigames. There's one thing I should mention about Mission for the Man is that the graveyard is also used in another quest called None Shall Pass, and if you start that quest, you might have to finish that in order to complete this one. Batten Down the Hatches is the quest I mentioned earlier that has a different name in the DS version, where the story is slightly different, but the objectives are the same. In the Game Boy Advance version, Lily tells you that Big Bucks wants to buy the bumper boats and dam the river. But she actually doesn't want that to happen, so she tells you how to save it. You convince Ewan to help because anything that needs to be built, you just talk to Ewan, I guess. But he can't work on engines. However, Dusty can. In order to convince Dusty to help, you have to beat him at a motocross race. Hey, remember earlier when I said you'd be wrong if you thought that if you don't like playing the Motocross Mayhem minigame, you'd never have to upgrade your bike? Yeah, this quest right here is the reason why that's wrong, because in order to beat Dusty, you have to upgrade your bike to a certain degree. And it's really, really annoying. Once you beat him, the quest isn't even over, so whatever. Because you also have to have 5 creativity points. And then you have to talk to Polly and convince her to bring her friends to go on the attraction by getting a certain relationship level with her. And once all of that is done, you stop the sale and you unlock the Hagar Bombard minigame, as well as a motorcycle you could drive around town. I'm gonna be so honest, I cannot tell you about this game because I played it once when I was younger and I got this game for the first time, and I hated it so much that I never really played it ever again. It's like bumper boats, but you have like a cannon or something. I don't know. It's a stupid minigame. I hate this minigame so much. In None Shall Pass, Grandma Hattie is pleased with her protest success. She wants to grow the movement, and she needs your help to keep Daddy Big Bucks away from her meeting. To do this, you need either Body 5 or Charisma 5. Either one works, but you will get a different character depending on which stat you choose to level. Once you get one of those two stats leveled, you go to the graveyard at the designated time and guard it for 4 in-game hours. And this is the reason why you can have issues with Mission for the Man, because if you have this quest active, you can't actually enter the graveyard properly to search it. During your security shift, you encounter Daddy Big Bucks, and you have this whole Looney Tunes-ass segment where you convince him to walk away. It's very silly. After Big Bucks leaves, you get approached by the second character. If you chose to increase Body, you encounter Darius, but if you chose Charisma, you encounter Lily. Once the second character is repelled, Grandma Hattie approaches you and tells you that the meeting was a success. And as a reward, you unlock a second part of the graveyard as well as a recipe book you can use with the cooking supplies. In Get on the List, Cannibal Coleman wants you to be a bouncer for his show. But you apparently have no street cred, so you have to gain 2 rep points with your assigned rep group. Once you do that, you go to the appointed time at the jazz club and reject anyone from the rep group Cannibal Coleman doesn't want in. Since I always pick to be in the Richies to get the best rep item in the game, Sensory Deprivation Chamber my beloved, I always had to reject the nerdies. But when I was looking up the guide to help me write the script for this video, I learned that it's usually the Richies that get rejected, but it gets swapped to nerdies if you are a Richie. And all this time, I just thought Cannibal Coleman just didn't want any nerds cramping his style. Another note, in the Game Boy Advance version, one of the potential characters that comes by is Lincoln Broadstreet. Lincoln, as far as I'm aware, is the only disabled character in the game because he uses a wheelchair. The jazz club has stairs to where the concert is. But I guess since the jazz club isn't ADA compliant, they removed Lincoln as an option for the DS port instead of just making the stairs a ramp or something, which they do have ramps, they're in the newspaper office. Again, this game is a product of its time, and thinking about it too much hurts my head. The reward for this quest is a golden trophy that gives you increased money in a later minigame, but right now it's kind of useless. In high society, Luther Big Bucks, the son of the man that is literally trying to ruin everyone's lives, the leader of the Richies, and totally not the Superman villain Lex Luthor, is sad because there's nowhere for rich people to hang out. You can suggest the bottom of the ocean, which I'm not sure if that aged like wine or milk. There's plenty of space on the ocean floor! Oh my god, did this game predict the Titan submersible? Hello? His solution is to reopen the museum. To do so, you need to fund an exhibit and find a museum curator. The cheapest exhibit is 500 buckaroos, which is the best option since you have to find a curator through Roxana, and you need to give her 300 dineros to help fly her friend out. Once you talk to Luther again, you complete the quest. And the reward is that every week, you get some money from your investments. And after the quest is over, you can still buy more exhibits. After completing all the previous quests in this chapter, you unlock the quest The Ballad of Pepper Pete. Mumbo Loa learns that Old Salty is going to sell his boat to Daddy B, and we have to stop it. The plan is to dress up as Salty's long-lost brother, Pepper Pete, to convince him not to sell. But you need the right costume. You need a white beard, which you can get from Pritchard Locksley for $300, a navy pea coat, which you can get by searching the thrift store after talking to Phoebe, and I hate this part because it's really hard to get that little arrow to find the stupid coat. And finally, a naval cap, which you can get after talking to Polly about online shopping and then going to a computer and ordering it online. Once you get all 3 pieces, you bring them to Mamba Loa, who makes the costume. After dressing up as a recolored Salty, you talk to him in your best sailor impression to convince him not to sell the boat. After Salty tells Daddy B the deal is off, you get out a costume. Once again, Daddy B is very upset, and so he picks you up by your legs and yeets you into the fucking water. I'm not even joking. The dude tries to kill you, and then he does like a little dancey dance in celebration. However, you are a bad bitch, gender neutral, and he can't kill you that easily. You do, however, unlock the next chapter of the game. This chapter is similar to the first one where the mission progresses in a linear fashion, so we won't be breaking them down like the previous 2 chapters. After getting yeeted, you wake up on a dock in a much different environment from the rest of the game. This is the bayou, which was previously only a conversation topic, but surprise, it actually exists. You're approached by Crawdad Clem, who is convinced you're a vampire. Despite you telling him vampires don't exist, he doesn't believe you and makes you answer his questions. If you get them all right, he believes you. But if you get only one of them wrong, he is appalled by your apparent rancid vampire vibes and doesn't want to talk to you anymore. You are now able to explore the bayou and find, not much. There's the brother's house, which is where you can satisfy your Sims needs. Chickens you can just put in your pocket for some reason. There's a mausoleum you can't enter yet. There's plants that could literally eat you. And if you get eaten, it puts you at the house. And a big tree where you see Daddy Big Bucks as the Grim Reaper. Whack. While there really isn't much of interest here, it's a good place to check for toads, logs, and uranium rods. If Clem thinks you're a vampire, you're gonna have to wait to talk to him for a bit before you can continue on with the quest. When you do talk to him, he does not give a flying fuck about your plight of getting back home. But to prove your worth, you have to capture the vicious alligator man in the tree guarded by grim big bucks. You have to find a light source, and there is a glow stick next to a plant, so you just viciously mock it to stop it from eating you, because that makes sense. You take your glow stick to the tree, crack it open, and banish grim big bucks and encounter Lloyd, an alligator man who is super chill. He's annoyed by the brothers calling him a monster, so he gives you half a locket and teleports away. Yeah, sure, whatever. Talk to Boo to find another way to prove your worth. He tells you about the Red Man, who plays Phil at midnight, and this is totally not a direct reference to the hit song The Devil Went Down to Georgia. God damn it! Anyway, you play a round of the new minigame Soul Music and win. He gives you the other half of the locket and bounces. The minigame is now unlocked to play, and it's probably my favorite one. It's a very simple call and response type rhythm game where the Red Man plays and then you copy him. While it is the same song every time, I'll let it slide because it's a really good song. You then have to talk to Clem and give him both locket pieces, and it's revealed that it belonged to his late mother, and so he decides to help you get home. He tells you to meet Boo at the mausoleum. Boo is still a little scared about vampires, and you're like, vampires aren't real, silly. And so he's like, oh yeah, you're right, and then opens up the mausoleum by playing the fiddle. You both go into the mausoleum, and halfway through, Boo gets hit by the Scooby-Doo revolving wall trap and just vanishes, to which your character just shrugs off and continues to leave. Yeah, just fuck him, I guess. When you leave, you find yourself in the graveyard, where Grandma Hattie tells you that everyone was worried, but Glasstown is now open, and the game goes back to separate quests for a bit, and you can now use the mausoleum to get back to the bayou. Before we get into those quests, a brief description of Glasstown. Glasstown is the very pretty, sparkly downtown area of Minneapolis, you know, the gentrified part. It's where King Tower is, you know, the building you got arrested in. It also has a movie theater, a department store, the rep building, which has clubhouses for each group, access to the carnival, and a door to Club Zizzle. There's also the last 2 housing options in the game, the penthouse in King Tower, which has been finished since your time squatting in it, and the apartment building. The penthouse is the most expensive and the best in quotation marks housing options, though I still like my house in the Sim Quarter better. With that out of the way, let's get back to the story. In Running from the Law, you encountered the quest that was personally made to spite me specifically. It's triggered when you run and then get fucking arrested. The detective tells you that Big Bucks has made running illegal, and this is why it's personally made to spite me because I run everywhere. Do I have a hoverboard and a motorcycle? Yes, but they're both a pain in the ass to use, so I just ran everywhere. Imagine how pissed I was the first time I played this game. You have to pay a fine to get out of jail every time. And by the way, the law is still affecting the bayou. Don't ask me how I know.
No! How did you know I broke the law of the bayou?
In order to get the law overturned, you need to write a letter to the governor. Luckily, there's someone that has also been arrested that could help. Grandma Hattie. Another problem arises though. The governor is on vacation, so you have to find someone to bring the letter to him. And now for another frustrating part of this quest, since it wasn't already annoying enough. This is sarcasm. Unless you go into the university, there's literally no way to know who to talk to. There might have been a clue in some dialogue, but I first played this when I was 11 with undiagnosed ADHD. Do you think I know how to read? Anyway, the person you need to talk to is Gordy Puck, the guy that has been in some sort of coma the entire game so far. He finally wakes up to tell you that his family owns fan boats that he can drive to deliver the letter, but he doesn't know where to go and you're not popular enough. Reputation gates my beloved. After becoming popular enough and finding a map in Salty's boat, you give the map to Gordy. He's like, okay, bet, and then teleports. Why is everyone teleporting? You know what, whatever. At the end of the quest, the law will be lifted, thank God, and you'll have access to a fan boat, which you can use to get to Paradise Isles. And you can also use it to get to the bayou by undocking at the brother's house. I always took care of this quest as soon as possible for reasons I mentioned earlier, and also because the fan boat is used to get an item for another quest. In Carnival, you talk to Roxana, who needs help starting up her carnival. It's a very small area with a few little mini games, and Lloyd, what are you doing here? Bro said, I hate that the brothers bother me, and then joined a freak show? Whack. It's also one of the places where the smoothie ninja Heidi shows up. I mentioned her a while back, but she sells smoothies that give you money or increase a skill point, which are canonically made by Boo and Clem. But for the quest, again, Roxana needs help with her carnival. She needs a dancing animal, funds, and a new tightrope walker. Her old one was allergic to rope. Tragic. To find the critter, you take your newly acquired fan boat to an island of dancing nutrias and just take one. Straight up put it in your pocket. I mean, you could put a whole fridge in there, so that's fine, I guess. For the funds, you just need to get 5,000 cash money. Well, you're going to be playing a lot of mini games. And finally, for the new tightrope walker, you talk to the most fit person in town, Misty Waters. But of course, she won't do it for free, so you have to get her a day with Luther Big Bucks. Once that's all done, you talk to Roxana and she says the carnival is on. Girl, it was there the whole time, but whatever you say. Once you've done the previous 2 quests, you unlock the Big Bucks players. Teresa is pissed at Daddy B, who isn't, and wants to put on a satirical play about him. And being the gremlin you are all for this. But you don't have enough street cred, so you gotta bump that up. For actors, she wants some new faces to play Daddy B and Lily Gates, so you befriend Dusty Hogg and Supernova to play the parts. Then you need to decorate the stage. You don't have a lot of room to work with, so I just put 5 garden gnomes. It doesn't matter what you put down, as long as it's 5 items. Another pro strat is to get the painting easel and then paint 5 paintings and then put them all on the screen. And all the items stay there for the rest of the game. Once everything is set, it is time to attend the play, and it's a big success. And by that, I mean Daddy B gets really mad and said he's going to go back to the beginning. I'm sure that's not important. This is sarcasm. And that's the end of the chapter. Yippee! It's time for the final chapter, and this one is a doozy. I've been all over the place, so strap in and let's get started. We're just gonna take this one quest at a time because God, this chapter's a mess. In Reality Show, this quest has a different person that triggers it based on your rep group. It will be whoever is the leader of the group that you were placed in. For me, I was always Richie, so that was always Luther. Regardless of who triggers the quest, it plays out the same way. You're told about a reality show that is clearly inspired by the Survivor series, and you are able to participate for your rep group. So you head to Paradise Isles and talk to the host, Pritchard, to start your stint as a reality TV star. The first challenge is trivia. You have to find 4 coconuts, give them to Pritchard, and answer a question for each one. If you answer all 4 questions correctly, you get to advance to the next stage. Or you can fail to find the last coconut and fail the challenge, and it counts as the quest being complete, and there are no repercussions for failing, so speedrun strat, I guess. If you continue on to the next stage, you gotta make the other contestants not like you. Well, just decrease their relationship points by 20 so they don't want to talk to you anymore. And then you have to do the same to Pritchard, who is the host of the show, so I'm not quite sure why we're antagonizing him, but whatever you say, game. And then you win, I guess. I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't remember ever completing this quest fully because it's so easy to fail the first portion. If you don't have your needs maxed before heading out, you will have to eat up some of that time limit to refill them. There are ways to refill most of them except for the bathroom meter, and it's a really rough quest. And then when I was going back to get footage, I had the max needs cheats on, so I didn't have to worry about that. Well, I still failed the second challenge of this quest because I just could not get these people to hate me, and I was trying really hard. Because there's some dialogue options where before you become like friends with them and they have the little smiley faces behind them, saying certain things will make them lose points. But once you reach that friendship threshold, those same options can give you more points, which is the opposite of what you want to do. Honestly, you're probably just better off failing the coconut challenge because this quest sucks. In Back to the Drawing Board, Luther asks if you have seen his dad. But like literally the last time we saw Daddy Big Bucks is when he smacked us upside the head and picked us up by our feet and threw us into the water, which Luther was there for. So no, Luther, I haven't seen him. We're not exactly besties. He mentions that he saw his dad talking to Polly before he just kind of peaced out, and so you seek her out. After getting a relationship with 70 with her, she tells you that Daddy B has a secret lab. In order to get in, you have to go into his office during a very specific time of day and find the lever that opens the passageway to the secret lab. If you try to activate this lever literally any other time of day, you get arrested for trespassing. And mind you, it's not that you're in the office during the time, because if you are 1 second past the time period and you try to activate the lever, you'll still get arrested. Once you go down the secret passageway, you find the secret lab, and on a table there are just some blueprints scattered around. In order to find the correct blueprint, you need a logic skill of 6. It's recommended that you have that before even going into the secret lab. You bring this blueprint back to Luther, and you learn that Daddy Big Bucks is building a time machine. Yes, there is time travel in this game, but we'll get to that later. For right now, your quest is over. In Interview with a Cajun Vampire, you talk to Clem and he tells you that he hasn't seen Boo since you left the bayou last chapter. Gee, I wonder why. You go back to the mausoleum, you remember the place where Boo got Scooby-Doo revolving door trapped, and find him chained up and turned into a vampire. Because we have a ghost, whatever the hell the red man is, and people that can teleport, one of which is an alligator man. Oh yeah, and we just find out there's time travel. So of course vampires exist. And that means that Clem and Boo were right all along. You need to free Boo from the chains with the mechanical skill of 7. But being the mindful king he is, if you try to break the chains before you cure him, he tells you that he doesn't want to be freed before being cured because he doesn't want to hurt you. To find said cure, you go to the only person with knowledge of the supernatural, Mambo Loa, and she tells you that you need to feed Boo something chocolate, because yeah, that makes sense in the context of this game. You need to get a mixer, an oven, and 3 chocolates from the cooking vendor in the market. What you're trying to make is the chocolate bunny, which is 3 bars of chocolate mixed up in a blender, and then you bake it in the oven because that's totally how chocolate bunnies are made. However, in order to create this Easter confection, you need to have a cooking skill of 5, otherwise you're just going to keep failing. Once you have successfully crafted your chocolate bunny, you gift it to Boo and he eats it and becomes cured of vampirism. And now that he's cured, you can finally break the chains. And that's the end of this quest. In the quest Captured, you need to complete Back to the Drawing Board first, otherwise the quest will not trigger. However, said trigger is very funny, but almost impossible if you don't know about the ninja Heidi Shadows. At this point in the game, there's really only a few ways you can access her. She can be found at the carnival from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m., Paradise Isles from 4 a.m. to 5 a.m., and the tunnel between the jail and the bayou from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. However, the tunnel can only be unlocked if you reach a relationship of 100 with a detective. And if you have no need for her cheat smoothies, you don't really need to approach her at all. So you're kind of going to be stuck not knowing what to do unless you accidentally go close to Heidi. Because as soon as you get close to her, this happens.
Oh, Heidi! Here? Huh? 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 What? What just happened? I got kidnapped!
Yeah, the trigger for this quest is Heidi literally fucking kidnapping you. You get put in a cell with Harlan King, and because you're trapped, the only thing you can really do is talk to him. After getting a relationship of 30 with him, Daddy B comes in and explains his big evil plan. He's going to use a time machine that is now in the secret lab to go back in time to stake his claim for Minneapolis so that he owns it all in the future. He hops in the time machine, he vanishes, and things start exploding for no reason, and it causes the cell to be open. You talk to Harlan King again, and he's not concerned because he thinks Daddy B died in the explosion. Whoop, okay. I'm sure nothing's gonna come out of this. Again, this is sarcasm. Now that you're free, the quest is done. After completing the previous 4 missions, you unlock the quest Atlantis Premiere Party. This quest is triggered by Crystal if you are a male player, or Maximilian if you are a female player. Regardless of who you talk to, they tell you about a movie release about Daddy B and you want to go for some reason. You go talk to Lily Gates, who is Daddy B's business partner. She says she has extra tickets because she's not going, saying she has to look after things while Daddy B is away. Suspicious. However, our character's not one to ask many questions, so we're just not going to dwell on that. She's not going to give away these tickets to some scrub, so you have to prove to her that you're cool by giving her 1,000 simoleons, having a relationship of 70 with her, and the right popularity percentage. Once you do all that, you get the ticket. Since this is a black tie affair, you have to dress the part. I'm actually serious. You go to a place where you change clothes, like the thrift store, for example, and you have to put every item that's on your body to the black color or you can't continue the quest. Now that you're all dressed up, you go to the theater at the designated time and hang out in the lobby with some of your friends who are also all dressed up. But hilariously enough, you don't actually see the movie, you literally just stand in the lobby. Daddy B shows up and states that his plan was a success and that all of Minneapolis is now his. You go outside and see that there is now a big statue of him. And this leads on right into the next quest. It is time for the final quest, Back in Time. This quest is triggered immediately after the previous one. Harlan King scolds you for attending the premiere of the movie about Daddy B, despite the fact that the game made you do so, and he thought Daddy B was dead anyway. Now it's your job to save the day. I have done so much for this city already. Why can't anyone else do anything? Let's just stop Daddy Big Bucks already. To do so, you need your own time machine. So you need to find someone who knows a lot about science. And you would think it's Polly since she helped with the first time machine, but no, it's Supernova this time, for some reason. She tells you that you need 10 uranium rods and a helper who is good at building things. So you go to someone who is good at building machines. Dusty Hawk, nope, just kidding. You talk to Ewan, despite the fact that in a previous quest, he says that he's not great with machines, which is why you have to race Dusty earlier. Whatever, nothing in this game makes sense anymore. But building a time machine is expensive, so you need to give Ewan $10,000. You're gonna need a lot of rosebud smoothies and mini games to make that money. Yeah, at this point, that $5,000 that Roxana needed for the carnival, that seems like nothing compared to this. After giving Sue the uranium rods and Ewan the money, you are told to head to the motorcycle shop. When you get there, you'll find that they have already built the time machine. Damn, that was fast. You need to take it to the highest point in town, but you also need to find out the right date. Sue suggests talking to a shady character who has worked with Daddy Big Bucks in the past, and there's literally only one character that walks around like a cartoon thief. You put the time machine in your pocket and head out. Yeah, the whole thing. The whole time machine just in your pocket. With all the wild things you just keep putting in your pocket, I don't know, man. Why am I even making this video? Anyway, you talk to Giuseppe and learn that he was a mole for the detective the entire time, which explains why it was so easy to bug that suitcase in the Mugu Monkey quest earlier. He didn't know the exact date, but he tells you that Daddy B went to 1870 and suggests that going to December 31st of that year would be a safe bet. And now it's time to go back where it all started, to the top of King Tower. You take your time machine out of your pocket and place it down, then travel back in time to December 31st, 1870. It looked like there was some sort of battle here, and you see a very alive Ephraim Earl standing next to a flag with the simoleon symbol. Also, side note, the American Civil War ended around 1870-ish, and Ephraim is wearing what looks like a blue uniform. I'm not saying that the American Civil War exists in the same universe, but horrifying implications aside, you talk to Ephraim and explain the situation. He says he'll take the flag and hide it, making Daddy B's claim to the land null and void. You travel back to the present where Daddy B is acting all smug, saying he's won and all he has to do is open the envelope to the deed. Being the little shit that you are, you're just like, go ahead. He opens the envelope and finds that the land of Minneapolis belongs to a Big Bucks. But an L Big Bucks and not Daddy Big Bucks. Wait, his first name is Daddy? Who names their child that? Anyway, this means that Luther is the owner of Minneapolis, which he's still a rich, out-of-touch billionaire, so like, it's not that much of an improvement, but at least he helped us defeat his dad, I guess. Daddy Big Bucks is upset, so he starts monologuing about his evil plan, and that means Detective Dan is able to arrest him, and he's exiled to the only place he actually owns, the island with the dancing nutrias. And with that, you finish the story. You have a parade thrown for you at the end, and they replace the statue of Daddy B with a statue of you. You get a little exposition of Daddy B on his island where he meets Lloyd. Why are you here? He just had to jump scare us one more time, huh? Once this little scene plays and the credits are over, you're free to roam Minneapolis however you wish. However, being a hero that literally saves the city doesn't stop you from being robbed.
What you?
In the DS port of the game, they add a whole quest line after this base storyline involving you going to an island with the Gene Splice minigame and complete with new characters and such, like I mentioned earlier. But for the base Game Boy Advance game, there really isn't much to do. You can continue Sim's life in Minneapolis however you wish. Each rep group has a trophy that you can find and return to the leader. You can master all the minigames, or reach the highest promotions possible, max out all your skills, stuff like that. There are also some rep group related missions, which you can get before the end of the game, but it's a lot easier to complete them after it. We'll go over each one just for the fun of it. The Streeties quest is given to you by Darius, and the goals are as follows. Number 1, seriously annoy Daddy Big Bucks. I'm not joking, that's actually what it says. You need to get a -50 relationship with him. While that's not impossible to complete before he's exiled to Dancing Nutria Island, you have to be very lucky and get the Nemesis Sizzle, which has a chance of making Daddy B your nemesis. Number 2, convince someone to join the Streeties. I mentioned this earlier, but this person is Ewan. You need to get a relationship of 100 with him, which will also unlock a secret area in the sim quarter by the bumper boats. And number 3, get the highest promotion in basketball. This one's pretty easy. All you have to do is increase your body stat and keep playing the hoops minigame well. The Nerdy's quest is given to you by Polynomial, and the objectives are as follows. Number 1, get the highest promotion in Dr. Max stat. This one is pretty easy. You just increase your logic and cooking skill. Game, why do I need to have a cooking skill to perform surgery on garden gnomes? That doesn't make any sense. Number 2, create a petrified wood chess piece. This one is tricky. You have a chance of finding the logs in the bayou and the tunnel that connects the jail to the bayou. You also need to get the carving station from the vendor in the market and the right skills in order to not watch the sculpture. And then what you craft is RNG, so it can take a while to get it done. And number 3, sell 15 bog frogs to the deputy. You have to sell 15 at once for it to count. They are mostly found in the bayou and the graveyard, but they can also be found occasionally in other places. The Artsy's quest is given to you by Roxana Moxie, and the objectives are as follows. Number 1, get the best promotion in the Comedy Club minigame, which you can do by raising your charisma and creativity stats and play well. And again, this is a pain in the butt because the minigame takes forever. Number 2, bake a strawberry tiramisu. The recipe can be found in a few places. You can look at the note that Heidi has for sale. You can also get the recipe from Giuseppe, of all places. And number 3, clean up the city. You have to sell 100 piles of trash. Like the one with the frogs, this has to be done all at once. So you have to stand there and keep pressing the button to increase the amount of trash that you want to sell to this poor man. The Richie's quest is given to you by Luther Big Bucks. And the objectives are as follows. Number 1, get the highest promotion in Mugu Monkey. To do this, you need to raise your logic and charisma stat, and you have to win the games. You can't tie for first. Number 2, own 30,000 simoleons in items. You have to buy expensive items and keep them in your house or any of the bonus storage spaces that you've unlocked. I already mentioned the one you get from Giuseppe and the one you get from Ewan. There are a few more of these locations. The other 2 you can get are both in Glasstown. You can unlock the projector room in the theater from Teresa by reaching relationship 100, and the trash can outside of King Tower by getting a relationship of 100 with Phoebe. It's easiest to do this when you have the penthouse because you have just so much space to work with. And finally, have 10,000 cash in your pocket. That's it. The Richies are just really easy to please, I guess. There's also more you can do with your rep group. Like if you get plus 6 points with your rep group, you get that special one-of-a-kind item. And getting plus 10 points gives you access to that clubhouse in Glasstown. There was also that multiplayer thing I mentioned earlier, but again, I never experienced it because it was locked behind a Game Boy Advance link, and I didn't have any friends. Now that we've gone over the story and all the quests, let's give our final thoughts and wrap this video up. Urb Sims in the City did not receive the acclaim that the mainline games or even its predecessor Bustin' Out did. And like most of the Sims spin-off games, it was largely forgotten, and honestly, I can see why. From what I've seen in the home console version, it was pretty much a regular Sims game, except in a city where you can beat the Sim version of Fergie. And while they tried their best to add some charm with the gritty urban setting, it just doesn't land, and no amount of Simlish Black Eyed Peas tracks could save it. And as much as I love the Game Boy Advance version, it isn't without its flaws. Almost every character is pretty much just a stereotype and one-dimensional. Many of these are definitely products of the early 2000s. For example, Darius is the cool rapper black man with gold chains and a tracksuit, and is pretty much the face of the game since he's all the Zizzle artwork, which brings forth the whole black men in rap urban environment stereotype. Ewan is an indigenous person who loves nature, complete with the crying Indian sprite, but is relegated to just a guy who can build things good. which brings up the notion of the construction industry impacting indigenous populations. And those are just the two worst offenders in my opinion. There's also the dialogue. It leans very heavily on the usage of AAVE, which was popular at the time, like faux rizzle, who could forget that? One of the zizzles gives you a dialogue option, and some of the characters respond with some interesting phrases. And the gameplay left a lot to be desired. Many quests had triggers or tasks that were completely missable for an average player, like needing to talk to Gordy or approaching the ninja. And this lack of direction can cause a player to just be searching around aimlessly because they don't know what they're supposed to be doing next. And some of the minigames, again, I really disliked the Motocross Mayhem minigame and Hey R Bombard. Despite me ragging on the game, I do think there is some good to it. While most of the characters are dated stereotypes, there are a few that stand out. Lincoln Broadstreet is in a wheelchair, and since he's a reporter, the news office includes a ramp. Now, why didn't they think about this for the quest Lincoln can show up in? I have no idea. But having that ramp, hell, even having a character in a wheelchair is a lot more than most games would do in that time period. And then there's the queen, Grandma Hattie. I firmly believe that she is one of the biggest reasons I am so for activism to this day. One of the first quests she gives you is to make friends and get involved in the community. Like, that's really cool. And for the gameplay, some of the minigames are really fun. Hoops is simple yet requires some timing mastery on the harder levels. Mugu Monkey is an interesting card game that can require a lot of skill and planning. And Soul Music, my beloved. I think the biggest reason I was so enamored by this game was just the absurdity of it all. And replaying the game on stream really reminded me of that. I got plenty of good clips from the stream because I just kept getting robbed.
Oh, not the TV. They steal. They stole my leprechaun! Oh my god, they stole my leprechaun! Right before my birthday, they stole my leprechaun before my March 17th St. Patrick's Day birthday. That's discrimination.
My things kept breaking constantly to the point where I started keeping a death counter of how many things broke per stream. And my oven also kept catching on fire for a while. And sometimes a combination of those.
Are you kidding me? No! Oh no! No, my house is still on fire! Fuck! Oh no! Oh, we were doing so good! Oh, my house is on fire! Oh, so funny. I didn't leave it on! My phone just got on fire and then I passed out! No! What do you mean I passed out again? What do you mean? What is happening? Oh no. Oh no. I know. God, I hope it's not still on fire. If it's still on fire, I'm gonna cry. It's still on fire! Oh my god! And the phone is broken! Holy shit! Oh my god! I'm going to scream! Oh my god! That was like a series of unfortunate events. Please don't catch on fire again. Please, I beg. Thank God. No! Holy shit! Oh my god, I know! This game is trying to humble me!
It was also just a lot of fun experiencing the wild story again. It had been a really long time since I last played, so there was a lot I had forgotten, like getting kidnapped for trying to buy a smoothie. URBZ for Game Boy Advance is by no means a perfect game. It's clunky, outdated, and forgotten by most consumers. But as I replayed it and posted clips on my TikTok, I found there were other people like me who adored this game and remember it fondly. And honestly, I'm glad I took my girlfriend's advice to play it again. And that's all I have for this look back on one of the most influential games of my childhood. If you played this game growing up, tell me in the comments about which rec group you always wanted to be in. And if you didn't, tell me about a game that was your URBZ Sims in the City for Game Boy Advance. This was a massive labor of love. I spent a lot of time researching, writing a script, playing the game multiple times. And this is also the first time I've ever used DaVinci Resolve, so I have no idea what I'm doing. But if you stuck with me until the end, thank you. I would love to do more videos like this in the future, so if you have suggestions of games I can play and talk about, feel free to let me know. And with that, I wish you a good day/night, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye-bye! For the home console virgins, girl! When? This game calls Repgloops. Christy. Hi, Mom! A nap on the roof of the tower. Harlan King explains that he didn't want to sell his building, but Bug